Hi everyone, I'm Antigone Chrysostomou and I'm leading the Azure HPC and AI Infra business in EMEA. And I'm delighted to have a guest today. My guest is Marc Fieldhouse, VP Sales and General Manager of Rescale, a very trusted partner we work with, and I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to dig into our partnership and into Rescale's mission and focus a bit deeper today. I'm actually very, very happy to reconnect with you here in Zurich after we met in Hamburg at the International High Performance Computing Conference, where we had an action track together. So really happy to have you. And before I dig into the questions I thought about, I would love to hear from you your perspective about Rescale's vision and mission as a company.
Sure, thank you, and thanks for the warm welcome. It's interesting because the vision for Rescale really has never changed over a decade now, and the genesis really of the company is to provide with research and developers with this incredibly flexible and powerful platform to run their research. But by doing that, we're trying to remove all of the complexity in partnership with Microsoft of running these very complex workloads on cloud infrastructure. And so really the core tenets of that is about simplicity, agility, and a strong partner to do that with.
So thank you. So talking about partner, how did the partnership with Microsoft evolve? What were the key elements around this partnership?
Yeah, we've been partners, I think, since day one, actually. So 11 years and counting, Antigone. And it was driven predominantly from looking at a partner in the industry that was both trusted already, and obviously that's the case for many decades for Microsoft, but also somebody that we felt we could trust with what we consider is still a very leading edge technology and solution. And I think when you look at the partnership that we've had over those 10 years, it really has gone from strength to strength. And most recently this year, I think just is an incredible achievement that we're both doing at the moment.
Super to hear, and I am looking at some success stories we had together. But what would you say are, looking at technology, what would you say are the differentiators or the unique differentiators and capabilities you see in Azure combined with Rescale's platform?
I think it's the incredible breadth and depth of choice and experience that you bring to enterprises, and that actually could be small startups to some of the world's largest companies. And partnered with Rescale, I think we get the sort of scale-up innovation of Rescale combined with that incredible heritage of Microsoft really is a powerful combination for a company to leverage. Plus, when you look at the solutions and the agility that you bring to the market, that is something that we at Rescale absolutely want to capitalize on. And in turn, our customers benefit 100-fold from that.
You mentioned at the beginning the researchers, right? So the kind of a focus on research. We've got, in the broader industry, we've got lots of companies, especially in the manufacturing area, automotive, mobility manufacturing, with many engineers, not only researchers, but engineers doing simulations. So how would you see those engineers, those populations in the companies benefit from the Rescale solution on Azure?
Yeah, it's a great question. Our conversation with let's call it a new prospect, starts in many different ways, actually. And typically, there's an ideation moment or something where an organization wants to bring together a far more collaborative approach for engineers and researchers. And they're looking for a way to do that as easily as possible. So typically for most companies, they don't want their teams to grow to do these things. They want to keep them the same size. They don't want to increase the complexity. So the conversation starts off typically from a very sort of embryonic or nascent origin, where they're looking to bring great agility to their engineers and researchers, to introduce collaboration where they haven't done that before, typically on a global scale. And I think really, if you look at the speed of innovation now, or the cadence that they're required to innovate new products or new product evolution, they really have no choice. You know, the cloud and Azure and the Microsoft partnership is the only way that they can achieve this high bar of expectation.
That's great to hear. And talking about engineers, you know, you talked about collaboration, and that's also what we see, these globally distributed workforces today in the companies. They have that benefit of the platforms to really collaborate. Do you have any specific use cases you would like to share of our recent success stories with customers? You know, if something is a public use case or anything you would like to
there's many,
out.
of course, and you know, we have the privilege at Rescale of working, as you do, in pretty much every industry segment. I think two or three that come to mind, and one is a very recent one actually, which was as recent as this morning, where the recent volcanic eruptions in Iceland.
Wow.
I spoke to one of the research facilities just this morning, and they were almost dying to get started within an hour to model lava flow. You know, and that has a real world impact of, you know, is it going to impact human lives? Is it? And so, you know, the ability of leveraging Rescale on Azure in this case has given them within an hour that immediacy of access to start real-time both AI and traditional simulation workloads. The other one probably, again, very close to my heart, is with a company called GM Motorsports, General Motors, who are launching a new Formula One car, or they intend to, in the, I believe it's the 2026 season. So the sheer innovation and pace of that design is such that they approached Rescale, again leveraging the huge breadth that Azure brings in that technical infrastructure, to allow them to design and to build a new Formula One car. The results have been staggering for them. You know, they went from zero to production with our partnership in 4 weeks.
Wow.
And that's artificial intelligence, generative workloads, incredibly large-scale simulations, and then inference and predictive modeling as a process. And there are not many use cases where you can say you went from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour in that short amount of time.
These are amazing examples, and this helped me expand my thinking as I started with that focus on the automotive and manufacturing and mobility space, where most of the engineers are doing design and are using the CAE tools, and then you mentioned something which is very relevant for the weather and the climate change, and that's also another big area where, of course, simulations are relevant. So looking at other use cases, are there any other spaces you would like to share? In which other industries are you expanding?
There isn't an industry that we're not involved in.
Okay.
And the simple answer is really any industry or company that is looking to research, and that can be a new product, it can be an iteration on an existing product, from everything from life sciences to automotive to pharmaceutical. You know, we work and have the privilege of being a trusted partner, as you do, in every single one of those verticals. There are core values that they all strive for, actually. So those core values are speed to innovate, speed to market, the collaborative aspects. But first and foremost, again, it's finding trusted partnerships that they can go on that journey with. It's not just a case of buying some software or infrastructure. They want someone to go on that journey with them. life sciences for me is particularly exciting. If you look at how AI and generative techniques are helping in molecular discovery and technologies like protein folding, where 5 years ago it was probably unthought of that we could leverage AI in the way that we have. And we have, of course, things like generative pre-trained transformers to thank for that, and the world of OpenAI has really exposed people to what's possible. And, in a good way now, I think it's like a snowball effect or a self-fulfilling prophecy now, where the more use cases people see, it gives them this inspiration to go and try other things in their company. Yeah. And on a daily basis, we get requests to help experiment and design, as you do, with companies, which is very exciting.
Yeah. Happy to hear about the AI, and I would love to dig a little bit into that, because looking at our solutions for all industries and for our customers, I tend to think that our solutions need to be embedded always within security, sustainability, and AI. These are like the three elements I'm thinking of these days as we evolve our solutions and use cases. And AI has been really very disruptive, a disruptive change. So I would love to understand a little bit more, if you're able to share, how has AI been integrated into the Rescale platform and how we run it on Azure. So I was excited to hear about these Gen AI use cases. So do you have some more information how this is integrated?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very timely, because I had the pleasure of doing a webinar with one of your colleagues last night. And the whole subject matter actually was the convergence of what I would like to call traditional simulation with artificial intelligence. And it's termed a number of things: AI science, AI physics, precision AI, but it really is the practice of introducing AI and machine learning concepts to traditional computer-aided engineering or design. And what that essentially means is not doing less simulation, but in actual fact being able to do more of it, because you're optimizing those initial workloads that typically are very human intensive. And you're giving AI models this design space or freedom to say, okay, here's a design for a car. Within this space, create me 50,000 other variants of this piece. And that's very powerful, because you can then go from relatively low fidelity to a high fidelity design generatively before you even go and simulate. So it's giving companies this ability to innovate at such pace. If you look at the automotive industry, it typically takes European and US automotive companies about 3 to 4 years to go from zero to launching a new vehicle. If you look at examples in China, for example, that's a 12-month period, because of how they're leveraging AI techniques. And it changes from industry to industry. Everybody has a slightly different use case. But what is common across all of them is it's about being faster, being better, responding quicker to market dynamics and change. But they can only do that using, companies like Microsoft and Rescale, where the platforms and the solutions we give them are enablers to get that work done. It's not a simple case of saying, here's some software and hardware, good luck with that. They need help to realize those benefits.
Absolutely, these are great examples, and thank you for sharing those ideas. And I think this is then the challenge we all have in this space, to transport that inspiration to our customers' minds and help them understand how they can make the change. And where do you see us struggling the most as partners to really change that mindset and drive the adoption of these new technologies? And do you see, anything, the various time zones, like the Americas, EMEA, Asia, what is made what is different, and what can these time zones learn from each other? Any market insights?
Yeah, I'll reflect on the time zones towards the end, but I think one of the largest hurdles that I hear about, probably on a daily or certainly weekly basis is, where do we start? How do we start? You know, we almost have this fear of missing out syndrome where companies know that they have to do something to remain competitive. If they don't, it's fairly obvious now that anyone not adopting AI techniques within their process pretty much, you know, will be left behind. But the difficulty is where to start and how. And we know that data is the lifeblood of, you know, traditional simulation has lived on data for decades, whether it goes back to the 1960s or as recently with, you know, computer simulated designs or AI. But AI, even more so, you know, has to have data to work. Now, the biggest problem that most organizations are facing is that when they were storing data for the last 30 years, they never had the forethought or insight to store it in a way that was highly usable, right? So you have this scenario where we've got tons of data, petabytes, we all know that, but it's not usable, or in the form it's not usable. So many organizations are almost drawing a line in the sand and saying, right, we now need to store data with the situational awareness and geographical awareness, organizational awareness that can then be leveraged for AI. And if you look at that across, as you said, the time zones, Antigone, there are certainly lessons, I think, from different cultures, different enterprises who have been adopting at very different paces. And I think that's driven by adoption of AI and how it's culturally impacting different countries or regions. You know, I won't make comment on who's fastest or slowest, but there is definitely a horse race going on here as to who can adopt it quickly enough. And that's governed by policy then as well. So, you know, are countries then artificially restricting innovation to use artificial intelligence because they're concerned about intellectual property, about human rights, so I think if we're not careful, in some cultures we might stifle that innovation and creativity before it starts, and that is one concern.
Yeah, well, it's great comments, and I think that in the AI space we may have that kind of drive, because as you said, people don't want to miss out. So that's something which is kind of moving customers and companies towards that space. But going back to the core element of simulations, even without the AI element, which is running on HPC environments. What could we do better to really reach that mindset of people who are very on-prem oriented in their data centers, and how can we jointly work to inspire the cloud adoption for those traditional workloads, which are HPC? That's on top of my mind every day as we're working with customers.
I think there's always a mindset that if you come from an on-premises infrastructure, you're losing that control. And there's probably a natural concern about jobs, obviously, if people are running those infrastructures. I think the biggest, hopefully useful piece of advice I give many organizations is it's not about losing the skills, it's transforming them to modern technologies. And if anything, it's making that role or that person or that team far more valuable, because you're converting them to not just simulation specialists, but cloud specialists, AI, workload. And I had a conversation this week with a company in the life sciences space where the thought of redesigning, so essentially their data center was coming to the end of usefulness, in terms of capacity and power. And the thought really scared them that they were going to have to rebuild this. And the perception was that was the only way to do it, right? But having sat down for a couple of hours with them, I think their eyes were open to the world of possibility in cloud. And you don't have to relinquish the control. The great thing that Microsoft's infrastructure allows is probably to have far tighter controls and governance over workflows than you might have traditionally on premises. So I think a lot of that cultural shift is changing now. The other thing, of course, is the agility that cloud affords you. I think almost sells itself. You know, if you go and buy a new laptop today, you know that in 6 weeks it's going to be out of date or something new and more powerful has come up. And whenever I talk to research teams or engineering teams, they want the latest, the best, the fastest, the new GPU, the new CPU. And what we do at Rescale is we proactively benchmark all of this infrastructure that you provide to tell research teams what their software will run best on. And we do that continually for them, so they don't have to. So I think a lot of that shift is happening. Companies are recognizing now that managing and running your own infrastructure, it's kind of a very difficult thing to keep doing. The skills are difficult to obtain and maintain. So yeah, I think the future obviously is always bright for cloud and those solutions, but the transition, I think, is becoming much easier for companies now.
I have to say, love to hear these comments. It's almost, listening to you, positioning the cloud and really selling the cloud benefits and the cloud story. And you said things about the value and the skills. So we need to jointly, when we collaborate around customer cases, we need to keep focusing on the value we can bring to the customers, but then how then we jointly can help them build the skills so they lose the fear and they can be faster in the adoption of the new technology. So that's
and if I might
great
add
call out.
It's not just a monetary thing. There is a big cultural change. You know, my background was large on-premises data centers, and so I have this love for still seeing the hardware and playing with it. But so you do understand that change for people. But it's about transformation. And I think for any enterprise now, the more you can transform the skills and your culture, the better that you'll perform.
Well said. So when we're talking about transformation and you think about Rescale and every company is evolving towards the future, what are your thoughts about, where is Rescale going? What are thoughts about innovation, or where are you looking at in the future?
Oh, that's a great question. We have an ethos actually at Rescale that we iterate to innovate. So innovation is in our blood, as it is for Microsoft. And some of the new innovations that we're bringing to market are around things like a data fabric or a file system in the cloud, if you will, that allows people wherever they are in the world, leveraging Microsoft infrastructure to get access to data, both an ingress and egress model. So that's one thing that a lot of customers have asked us to help them solve the problem of. The other one is about, we mentioned it before about data. We've just released new solutions around tagging and metadata, so enabling customers to not only manually tag simulation data, but to automatically generate millions of data points that they can then leverage for AI techniques or physics models. So that's crucial. And that whole sort of space for us is evolving to a whole new different level, actually. We're announcing later this year some beta access to a whole new research platform that we're going to be launching to market, which brings the concept of products rather than just simulation. But if I'm building a new car, what are all of the individual discrete components that go to that car, the teams, the process, and we're going to be pulling all of that together in an R&D cloud concept for customers, which so far has been greeted with just incredible excitement because it approaches a problem how a customer approaches it, not how we think they should do it.
I think that's a great concept because it bears the thought of integration. You used at the beginning of our conversation a word about simplicity and flexibility, and simplicity is something which I think end users need, as all the components in the background of these systems are becoming more complex. And complexity applies to the car, which is being designed and manufacture. Complexity applies also to the architectures.
Yes.
We have,
Yeah.
let's say, Azure as a cloud environment. There are complex architectures in the background, and we need to take actions to simplify those for our customers, and that's what you do excellently through the platform.
Thank
and
you.
how it is
Yeah.
integrated on Azure. So I think that kind of bringing simplicity to the usage, and to the experience
Yeah.
of end users. This is what we're valuing a lot in that partnership, because you are building that layer which is taking away the complexity of the background architectures and building that positive experience.
Yeah, and if I may, I think the way that we approach that in partnership makes us a good corporate citizen in that ecosystem. We can't be everything to everyone, and I think staying true to your core values as we do at Rescale makes us truly focused on the objective in hand. And but the ecosystem is huge, right? And you can't have a product or solution for everything, and that's why partnering and being a connector or orchestrator in that ecosystem is so crucial for us. So connecting to data platforms, product lifecycle management platforms, to storage, it means that you have to play well with everybody else. You can't do it alone.
What else? What else didn't we talk about you would like to share?
We've covered a lot of subjects. I think what's next, I think, is interesting. I think if you look at the industry at whole, and these are Marc's views. What excites me. I'm a huge Copilot fan. I think leveraging. It scares me how much I use that on a daily basis now. How did I ever exist without it? But I think the great thing for people in their jobs now is the better people are the people that will leverage those tools now. I'm really excited that the hardware manufacturers like Azure will start to really look at industry-specific hardware, I think. So if you look at the system on a chip concept and some of the things that ARM are doing now, who are a joint customer, of course, the technologies, I think, will start to become less generic, and maybe, why not build a complete system for an industry on a chip that is purpose-built for that vertical. So those are some of the things that excite me, the open frameworks that people have access to. I'm always slightly concerned about how quickly the world allows us to adopt that, but that's a slightly more esoterical. But personally, it's a privilege for me to work with a company like Microsoft, and in the industry that we're in, it's a privilege to talk to the people that we get to talk to on a daily basis.
Yeah, thank you for sharing these thoughts.
You're welcome.
And
that
topic about customization versus generic solutions. I think all this is a super interesting conversation, because it brings us beyond the daily use cases we have now, and we're thinking ahead as to what the industry will look for in the future. So it's exciting, and I want to thank you for taking the time
you're welcome. Thank you.
to have this conversation
Thank
with
you.
me today, and I'm looking forward to join forces and look for more customers we can inspire together and change their mindsets and win their hearts and minds to adopt the cloud and get the best value of our solutions.
Likewise. I have no doubt that we will.
Thank you, Marc.
No, thank you. You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much.